Hey, Ronnie here. Shall we make a game? So yeah, on the weekends I'm looking to basically continue game dev efforts, and today I want to start with well, we're looking to go next for game dev. So like a while ago, I posted this cringeworthy meme, and it's basically kind of what I want to do. Kind of mashing two sort of classic games together. So in this case, obviously Tony Hawk Pro Skater from Resident Evil 1. So the engine which I was developing for the kind of like game prototype from Devteptober, whatever it's called, I'm still in the process in the background of basically taking that engine and cleaning it up, making it more sort of like generally useful. However, in the meantime, I'd start making some assets for this kind of like potential game and start thinking about how it might fit together. So I basically want to take the the first two rooms of the Spencer Mansion. So these backgrounds are tiny. They're PlayStation 1 backgrounds. So that 320 by 200 or 240, I think. Yeah, 240. And start figuring out how it actually turns into a Tony Hawk level, because there are some problems with this. Namely, these stairs. These stairs would not really work that great in like a Tony Hawk game, like a classic one, but you couldn't really run around. This would be a pain to go up and down. And if like you got like Tony Hawk levels, you got like school, which has a staircase in it, but they're very careful to make the stairs absolutely gigantic. I don't think you could get away with that here without looking silly. A suggestion I had, which is actually a really good suggestion, is actually making it so the room's kind of been, it's actually after the mansion has been destroyed. So, say this bridge might have collapsed and turned into a bit of a ramp. I think that's a great idea. I have to play around with that and see how it kind of looks. But a lot of the proportions are going to have to change. Like, you have a lot less, well, I'm sure that people who are really good at the game do have great control, but the average player would really struggle to get through, say, this gap and get through this door if they were playing Tony Hawk, just because the controls aren't super tight for movement. Not really like cramped spaces. And you also got the thing where you bounce off a wall, which would be kind of annoying in if everything is that tight. The other thing that then wanted to do was because the dining hall is all about this sort of two-level setup where you've got like the lower, the floor, and you got here. I think I'm making this a gigantic half pipe, right? And the idea is that you basically use this to get onto the second floor. And when it came to kind of like in-level objectives, I was thinking that maybe you could hand plant the statue and make it fall down by doing that. That could be kind of neat. Yeah, so other things, if I'm going to be changing the proportions of this room a lot, I'm going to be reducing the number of columns and making them quite a lot larger, just so that, you've got fewer obstacles to hit. Maybe moving this door this way, making it like twice as big. And maybe having some ramps up against this bit so you can like transfer up into here, that kind of thing. Is there a shot of the front door here? There you go, right. And maybe you'd be able to do a gap over the door as well. Because there's quite often like, secret sort of jumps you can do called gaps, and we could put one over the door, so hey, no, don't gap that door. So yeah, that's basically the this is my sort of rough concept for this at the moment. You need more rooms than just two, but those are the two I've got kind of the strongest ideas for. And if I can start building out some basic assets we can sort of remix into the final stage, that'd be quite good. So we can use this opportunity to have a look at the place and see what kind of textures there are and see what kind of things we're going to need. So we're going to need this kind of greyish sort of marble tiling texture. Looks like there's more of like a greenish one at the edge here. Maybe some kind of like reddish, brownish trim. Fortunately, we're not actually making it for a real PlayStation 1, so we can get away with higher polygon counts, higher, not really reusing textures that well, that kind of thing. We've got the wooden base, the wall. These lights will probably just be a sprite. Yeah. Okay. And in here, not much asset reuse between the grand hall and this place. Yeah. I do like how it looks like they didn't UV this edge properly, so it's just got like a stretched sort of marble texture on it. Which is kind of funny. So yeah, different texture down here. I think about keeping the dining table and using it as kind of like like a flat bottom on the half pipe. Yeah, And this here is going to have to be like 2-3 times wider just so you can move around it more easily. So I had been thinking about these kind of enemies, like you know, because you might put some monsters in here to, you know, because Resident Evil, no monsters, it's not really Resident Evil. Not sure how they work yet. Again, like you've got the sort of precise mobility issue I kind of mentioned earlier with the columns. I don't really want the players to have to be like dodging sort of zombies. Something if they're mostly static and you can just skate check them or something, I think that'd probably work. It kind of go with the kind of like yeah, sort of silly tone we're going with here. This is not a serious game that we're building. So let me grab Blender and let's have a look at this here. How big do we think this is? Probably help if I had a screenshot. Hang on, Resident Evil 1. Let's see a screenshot with some people on it. Here we go. This is what I'm after. Yeah, those tiles are about 1 meter by 1 meter. About. So I'm just going to have the plane. Now, in the previous project, kind of just largely just because I'd done a bunch of stuff with more modern game engines where this was actually advantageous. I did a lot of atlasing. So that's basically where you put like multiple textures together into the same sheet. I'm going to try and avoid doing that this time. And the reason I'm going to try and avoid doing that is it makes things like tiling possible. But I probably do want, when it actually comes to making the final model, I am going to want to have like polygon edges along the, you know, like sort of, so here and here and here and here, just to reduce warping because the engine is not perspective correct. Okay. So I have started working on a, I'm just going to have to make a texture first. Just a blank one will do. I have started working on some tooling for Blender that will set up materials and stuff nicely. Let's go for a 32 by 32 texture. That's probably enough. I'm just going to save this. Don't look in here, it's all spoilers. This is also full of spoilers. There it is. Yeah, I should have made this file first, shouldn't I? Game, levels, Spencer Mansion. And we're going to call this the, what do they call this for? They call it the Great Hall, don't they? Do they call it the Great Hall? Or am I thinking of Grand Hall? Wait, that's Resident Evil 4. What do they call this room? Entrance hall? Yeah, they call it the oh, this website. This website's actually really good for being able to see like a reference of how everything fits together. So yeah, entrance hall, I guess. Let's call it that. Entrance hall floor tile.tga. And we're going to do it as a index color. Just clean the palette by doing that. Make sure we've got 8 colors. I've always found that to be quite a nice kind of balance. And then also just going to blank all these out. So it's easy to see which colors I have and haven't used. So let's have a look here. This is kind of a, I think this is just like a neutral gray. Let's have a quick look. Because like, it looks kind of bluish, but I think that's just because there's quite a lot of yellow in this scene. Heat saturation value. It is indeed basically completely unsaturated. So let's desaturate and turn the opacity up, and there we go. Let's have a look. So they got kind of like a sort of like a marbly sort of squiggly texture on it and sort of edges. Those edges might be quite difficult to recreate in like a PlayStation 1 sort of non-pre-rendered style, but we'll kind of do our best here. Just fill in all these slots. And then, so there is the thing always of which edge do you put like the edge of a tile on? And the answer is, I don't know. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. We'll fix it later. So some of the tooling I've done and might work. It's broken in this version. Oh no. All right. Okay. I'm just gonna fix something. Bear with 1 second. Okay, I should now have in here, there we go, yep, add a material. And when I select a, not that you guys can see this, when I select a texture, what it will actually do, what it's supposed to do, there we go. What's going on here? What's this taking so long? It's weird. Anyway, yeah, it's actually created a material for us. And although it looks completely, black right now, what's actually done is it's created a, if I bring up the node graph for this, or is it shader editor? It's actually created this entire graph kind of behind the scenes automatically, so it's got no lighting, it's completely emissive, and it's using the texture that we put in, and it's got like nearest neighbor filtering, so there's no like texture filtering. It also multiplies in its color attribute. And the idea behind that is it's for lighting, so you can paint light directly onto your vertices like this. So it's it's going into a red light in one corner, and it's like completely unlit in the opposite corner. So you can basically use one texture and kind of give it a bit more variance. It's a thing they did quite a lot on the PlayStation 1. That's how we're going to do most of our lighting, is by vertex painting it in, probably manually. So let's get back to actually making this work. Let's just do a quick sweep across the brightness spectrum. If we need to change things later on, we can, no problem. And let's have another look at this. So yeah, it does largely just seem to be kind of sort of amorphous, shapeless stuff. I might end up reducing the size of this texture, but it's going to be a bit sort of shapeless anyway, so that should be fine. So I think you can select like a range like this. It's been a while since I've done this. I think you can then go into shading mode. And then it should work. Ah, there we go. Yeah, so like I can just basically spray over it. As you can see, every time it kind of like doubles up, it starts going a bit further down the kind of like range of colors we selected. So I'm just going to start off with just like a MS Paint style, mess of pixels. I'm just going using the airbrush tool, and that actually doesn't look terrible. I'm kind of shocked by the fact that doesn't look utterly terrible. But to give it that kind of like sort of like it's got kind of like a sort of swishy kind of marbly texture. I'm going to use the, where is it? There's kind of like a blur tool in here. Oops, not. What's that? Paint bucket. That's a paint bucket? How is that a paint bucket? It looks nothing like a paint bucket. Blur tool. Oh, it's kind of stolen some pixels from outside. I was hoping it wouldn't do that. And now we can go back in and we can size this a bit and start painting in. This is the rate, isn't it? So we can increase that a bit. Yeah, there we go. Start painting in some kind of like bits where it kind of like swishes in. Just get rid of this edge a bit. And I need to be careful here, because this is going to look really repetitive if I'm not super careful. We are going to be tiling this all over the place. And I'm going to run that blur tool again, which I think is that one. This is starting to produce kind of like the sort of the low frequency noise. And I'm just going to add a bit more high frequency noise on it, just a touch here and there, just to kind of make it look a bit less cartoony. And then maybe it'll lighten up in places because we're not currently using the lightest colors. Now, what I might actually do is very slightly stretch this. That. And the reason for that is that way we kind of got rid of that hard edge that we kind of didn't really want. But we didn't want both the hard edge and the shadow. We'd end up with like a massive kind of gutter around the edge of this texture. Okay, that's looking better. Let's bring that into Blender. I still need the UV editor open because I need to be able to refresh it. Oops, helps you actually get selected. There we go. So yeah, you can see kind of like, even though this is a very repetitive texture, kind of like combining it with a bit of sort of vertex lighting kind of really helps break up the repetitive nature of it. Now the question is, does this look like this? And I think the answer is not quite. It looks a bit too grainy. Slightly too grainy. So let's, I think I know what the issue is. I think I need to be a bit more gentle with this kind of gradient. Yeah. And then I'm going to start introducing the darker colors around the edge a bit more manually. Off the top of my head, I don't actually know whether the PlayStation 1 used... I think it might have used palletized textures. It probably did. That would have made sense back in the day, right? Save a bunch of that precious video memory. And let's bring it back into here. Now, that looks pretty bad when it's flat lit, but I bet it looks a lot better when you've got a bit more of kind of like a... sort of like a bit of light across it. It's going to kind of like a sort of like a coolish kind of blue for the shadows. Yeah, that's starting to look a bit better. There is this bit here that's kind of like double pixel. It's a bit repetitive. So let's sort that out. Let's just precision drawn in. There's this kind of dark patch here. So a light patch. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, we've got like a big sort of patch here I'm going to try and fix. Oops, not like that, I'm not. How's that look? Oh, we've ended up with like a row of pixels. Let's get rid of those. Ah. Okay, there we go. Right, that's texture number 1 done. Let's have a look around the room a bit more. So we've got these columns. They're kind of like a prominent feature, but I'm going to do this kind of like edge to the marble first. Now we can't really see that much detail on it. Let's have a look for the other textures because there might be, so the other backgrounds. There might be a better shot on it. Actually, you can go behind the stairs, can't you? And you can see quite clearly there. Now, that and that actually look like the same color. I don't think they are. I think it's just lighting, but that might imply that this is lighting. Let me see if I can find the background where it's kind of behind the stairs. Oh, there it is. That was easy. So yeah, looks like it has sort of no tarnisher. It's just basically kind of greenish marble. So let's make a new file. And we're going for this kind of greenish color. See if we can hone in on that. So we're not super saturated, I don't think, but definitely saturated. Yeah, it's more saturated than that, and also a bit lighter. Let's just shade the whole thing in this color, just so we can get an idea of what it looks like, kind of like en masse. Right, this looks more bluish, so let's go that way. And maybe slightly less saturated, slightly less light. We don't want to get it exactly 1-to-1 because you gotta remember this is actually after lighting has been applied, and this kind of like edge marble is kind of in it's always in places that have like strong lighting. So gotta try and separate that in your head, but we'll do what we can. We can always come back in later on and edit these palettes, because we are saving them as palletized. So again, I'm just going to do a quick run through the colors and just get ourselves a gradient. Don't think it actually gets that dark, so I'm going to lighten it up a bit. And this again, to actually just accomplish this, I'm just going to grab this entire range of colors. Same process as last time, except this time, this is tiled, so we're going to use tiled mode. Is it possible to get this to show me the layer edges? There we go. So in this mode, and this is like an absolutely banger feature of Sprite, you can see how it tiles, which means that we can just paint over the edges like this. Oh, it's so good. Right, this is a terrible texture at the minute, but when we start doing a few passes of like blur and stuff, just to kind of like, yeah, start to bring the features out, it should start looking a bit more kind of presentable. So lighten that patch up. Yeah, this patch here is a problem. It's solved that. I think it's solved. And I'm just going to really punch up the contrast a bit. And then I'm going to go over the blur pass, which should even it out. And then, hey, that's actually looking okay. Maybe another pass of that, just to kind of really punch it up, really make it kind of like look grungy before we blur it. Blur it again. That's not looking terrible. That actually looks kind of marble-ish. I'm going to get rid of this line here. That would really be obvious if you're kind of looking at it in Engine. There's also a bit here that hasn't come out super great. I wonder if there might be some not so great behaviors of the blur tool when it's working with tiling stuff, because that kind of looked like that was the case. And grab the airbrush again and go to like minimum flow rate, so I'm applying it very slowly. I'm just going to use it to kind of like add a bit more kind of detail. Maybe slightly more flow than that. I don't know what's actually, whether it's like pixels per second, I think it might be. You'd think it'd be something that'd be kind of like normalized by the size of the you know, the spray area, but I don't think it is. I think I liked it more when it's blurred, actually. Let's just go with that again. Gotta turn it into clouds. I don't want clouds. Let's just undo all that again. See if we can get back to where it was when it looked really good. Looked really good. Might be sugarcoating it a bit, but it looked better than that at some point. Yeah, I felt this was pretty much the peak. Maybe I leave it like this. Are we at least using every color? No, we're not. We don't have to, though. Let's try and fix up the tiling artifacts. And then this will probably do for this texture. And then we can start moving on to the kind of trim piece that goes between the two. See if we can find a good view of that. We know there is one. Maybe I'm going to like manually paint in some areas here, just to really kind of get the look I'm after. You can always adjust these brightnesses later on if it turns out to be a bit much. Let's get rid of these kind of random patches. Like I said, the tools we have to make games now are obviously so much better than the ones they had back then. Like, the way they built these original models was probably by using, because like things like digital cameras weren't super common. They probably bought like texture library CDs and then just used whatever they could find. Probably. Because that's as far forward as like Resident Evil 4, that's what they were doing. They were, because like, I think Capcom got into some hot water when the artists who actually produced these CDs realized that they were being used in a way that they were never Actually, no, in that case, I think they actually took scans out of an art book and then didn't credit the or pay the artist, which is a bit not great. Might have happened. I could see it happening by accident. You know, say like if something got handed over between devs and like they didn't explain where the images from, the credit got, and people just forgot that it was scanned out of a book. I could see it happening by accident. It doesn't necessarily have to be malice, but it doesn't make it right, does it? Okay, let's see how that looks in Engine, because we're only going to be having this in like narrow spaces, and it might not need to tile quite as well. So if I go to Add, Material, and go to Edge, that's weird. It's not adding to the slot. That's definitely something that was working before. Anyway, I wish it would like have vertex color on the default kind of object, because it's not that uncommon, is it? I don't think it is anyway. Why has Blender frozen? There we go. Anyway, let's extend this. Let's extend this edge out, and actually, is there a way to kind of like make it preserve UVs? Or rather, fix UVs? No. Okay, Maya users, you've got something over Blender. Relish this moment. It won't last long. Okay, and then we're going to assign this new texture to it. That doesn't look great, does it? That doesn't look intentional. I might need to drop the saturation once we're putting lighting on it. Because I'm thinking if this place is going to be destroyed, it's going to be very... it's going to have strong lighting because it's going to be lit by like fires and say moonlight and stuff. It's going to be quite... Let's just neutralize the lighting a bit. And let's go for a slightly less saturated kind of like shadow tone. I might redo this marble a bit as well. It definitely looks like an old game texture. It definitely does, but I feel like it might be a bit over the top. So I might reduce the contrast a bit, as I think that's part of the issue. It's just there's too much contrast between the highs and the lows. Right, let's see if that helps a bit. I think that helps a bit. We are currently missing like a trim piece that goes between the two, so we can get a good view on that. Yeah, there's kind of like a red line there. Now, that might actually be some kind of compression artifact or something. It's kind of hard to say. Oh no, there's definitely a piece there. I think there is some kind of smearing down the one side of it, maybe due to a compression artifact, but like that looks like there's definitely a discrete intentional edge there, which might actually be to kind of hide the missing tile edge a bit. I do love the fact that they when it came to like modeling this carpet, probably one of the most iconic looking things in the game. They did bother to put like a bit of a put a bit of a ripple in it, but then they didn't really think about how it kind of works with the staircase, so it's just kind of tucked under the staircase, which is so funny. Anyway, let's do this edge piece. So this one should be easy to do. So this one only tiles in one direction. Maybe we actually keep it tiling in all directions. And we can't really see much about it, so I'm going to go for a kind of like sort of like a reddish brown, which is going to be kind of like there-ish. And that's pretty light, but that's going to be the lightest color, so we want to go down from there. Now that's a very red brown. It's more red than I was really expecting, but it'll do, I guess. And that's actually not a bad color we ended up on. We're going to flatten this out a lot. We're going to make it a lot lighter. Oops, I meant to go for the airbrush. Go for our good old friend, the blur tool. There's actually no opacity setting on this. I might try it on a low opacity, see what it looks like. Oh, maybe more opacity than that. Oh, actually, that looks pretty good. It actually kind of preserves some of the detail while kind of like softening it. That actually looks pretty good. I might stick with that. Bit more shadow, bit more shadow. And a bit more blur. Now, again, it has made these kind of weird kind of... I don't think it is a bug though. I think it's just that it's just happened to make a nice shape there. And then let's do that. That'll do. Okay, let's make another... Make another material. And then I grab this, split it, and how far are we going to move it? We're going to move it 0.125. Yeah, that'll do. Join the two together, and I'll do that. Not actually add it here. Oh, I selected the wrong texture, that's why. And then we're going to assign that there. That looks kind of weird. Actually, I can do a nice little A-B between the two. Yeah, I think that's actually about right. It just looks sort of weird, kind of out of context, you know, without the kind of the walls on it. That's a very distorted texture, but that doesn't really matter. We're just sort of prototyping the contents here. I'm going to do another pass on this marbles. I think it's not quite right. I feel like it could do with like, yeah, more low frequency detail. So let's grab this. I've got the centerpiece. The blur's not going to work well with that, but we'll deal with it. Let's grab our airbrush, and yeah, I could definitely do just a few areas of sort of kind of like swirly kind of texture coming into it, which we don't currently have. Yeah, this one has built-in edges, so the tiling doesn't matter quite as much. Let's increase the rate just a bit. And then we're going to go for a blur tool. Bit more over here. Bit more over here. Bit more over here. And that should be good. No, that looks terrible. I've just effaced it completely. It's just it's good. It's that's not good. Let's see how that looks in Engine. I'm expecting that to look terrible. Oh, you know what? That doesn't look awful in Engine. That actually looks about right. Okay. Okay, this is one of the cases where like a texture needs to look pretty weird in flat for it to look good in 3D. Okay. Let's do like some more areas of kind of like, you know, medium frequency detail. So, you know, not things that cover like say a quarter of the texture, but also not individual pixels. And then we'll use the blur tool after that and see if we can get it to look a bit more cohesive. That goes a bit too dark, I think, but we're getting there. We're getting there. If I grab all this and then I'm just going to spray it lighter. Just a touch. And maybe we make the lighter areas lighter. Actually, maybe it's a good idea. You know, increase the contrast using the other direction. It needs an axis, but it's a one-dimensional plane we're working on. That looks better. Yeah, just a bit more. That's starting to look a bit more like it. Again, I might want to do another pass on that later on, but I'm trying to see how much we can get sort of done today. So we've got this kind of like this kind of baseboard here. This kind of like well, I don't really know what you call it, but again, that seems to be approximately a meter tall, so I'm going to take it as if it is. And let's extrude this up, say 1 meter, and then 1 meter again. Let's see how that looks kind of scale wise. And remember, it doesn't have to be 1-to-1. It's actually better if it's not 1-to-1 because we're going to be like adjusting the proportions anyway for so it actually works as a skateboarding game. Yeah, let's start texturing this in. So I'm actually going to grab this texture as a base because I actually like the palette from it. This is actually quite a nice palette. Maybe I should be using folders here, given I'm here prefixing everything entrance hall. Okay, entrance hall. Is baseboard the right word? Let's call it panels. And we're going to be getting the same size here as it's still 1 by 1 meter. And let's have a look here. What do we have? Do we have a better view on this? We might do from here. Yeah, so it's got kind of like a top molding, bottom molding, and kind of like a sort of like an indented area of these kind of square bits. So let's sketch that up. Let's make it tile only on the x-axis. I very rarely use layers in a sprite. I tend to find things don't get complex enough that they're kind of, yeah, mandated, but let's use layers for once, just so we can kind of draw on top of this. View the... It's meant to be showing the layer edges. Why isn't it showing the layer edges? Oh! It's not showing the layer edges because I'm on a new layer. Is it possible to... I just want to be able to see where the edges of the actual texture are. Looks like there's no way to display kind of like the image bounds. That's fine. We'll deal with it. Oh yeah, and if I'm going to make this magenta, it should probably actually have some opacity so I can see it. So yeah, so we've got top molding, bottom molding. Top molding appears to be quite short. Oops, that's not the line tool. That's the line tool. And then we're going to have the lower sort of molding, which is going to be a bit taller. It's going to be more like that. Then, yeah, looks like this bottom piece is quite short. The upper piece is a bit longer. So maybe it's actually vertically symmetrical. And then they've got this kind of square in the middle of it. So it's kind of like that. Now, spacing between them is way smaller than that though. So maybe let's just turn the tiling off. Yeah. Maybe it's... I was thinking like maybe you actually have 2 per tile, but that can't be because then they'd be really close together. Let's try making this a bit narrower. They probably weren't working on a tile grid like this. It's just it makes sense for kind of like level design. Okay, let's shuffle these in a bit more. And reduce the height slightly. Yeah, we're getting there. It's getting closer. No, that needs to be higher. And this also needs to be higher. Maybe 2 whole pixels. Yeah, that looks about right. Okay, let's get that onto a wall. So I'm just going to do an unwrap on this. And that's not helpful. It's gone the wrong way up. Oh no, I've just made everything worse. Add material. I'm glad I added that feature. It's actually already saving a lot of time doing material setup. Sign the panels. And I think that's upside down. Yeah, that's upside down. Okay, so that's our scaling. How's it kind of like look compared to the game? I think these floor tiles are meant to be like half the size. It'll probably look fine. If you're not like A-Bing them side by side, I think it'll look fine. Okay, let's start actually painting some texture into this. I'm largely not going to be able to use the I'm largely not just going to be able to use the like the blur tool and stuff like that because there's going to be too much fine detail. So let's have a look at the actual object again. It is here. So yeah, we're going to have like a highlight along the top. We're going to have like a shadow along sort of down there. So let's go in for like the most extreme colors we can. Just so we're getting like the maximum contrast and we can just make sure that all the placements make sense before we can start dialing them back in. Have a shadow there, shadow there, shadow there. Maybe kind of like an edge color as well. I think that'd be a good idea. And weirdly, they got a bit of shadow there. I'm not quite sure why. Because like, yeah, it should have a highlight like that. Maybe like, yeah, that's interesting. Why is that highlight and that shadow? Because like, there's like a dark ceiling like right there, and then like, I guess you know, the software they're using might not have had any kind of radiosity or anything like that. It might just be just whatever color it happened to pick up from the nearest light. Let's put some shadow underneath there. And then we're going to go for kind of like a sort of mid-ish tone along there. At that point, I should be able to hide both these layers, and I should be able to see like a rough structure of how it's all going to hang together. Oh, it looks like chocolate. Oh no. So yeah, we then need to basically, you know, draw the rest of the owls, they say, and actually texture this up a bit, make it look a bit more, well, a bit more finished. So tile on X, and yeah, then we can select everything that's meant to be that color in one go. And we can start painting some just rough texture into it. It is sort of unfortunately going to inherit some of the, when we do the blur pass, it's going to inherit some of the color from it, but I think it's the end of the world. Actually, that could look really good if like a bit of the sort of like the shadow and light kind of leak around a bit, make it look a bit more rounded and kind of real, you know? Let's see what that does if we just use the blur tool. Actually, you know what? That doesn't look bad. I'm gonna have to you know, do a lot of redo on it, but that's actually a good starting point. I actually kind of dig that right off the bat. It looks kind of more marble-ish than it does wood, because wood is usually shiny in a way that you're kind of like, even kind of like sort of worn, rough wood that's been varnished is usually a bit more shiny than rough marble. You know, rough marble tends to go very matte. But that doesn't look terrible. That actually looks better than I expected it to. So let's start pixeling in a bit more light shadow. Yeah, if anything, I think like this palette I'm using might be a bit too conservative. Might need to be a bit more shady and dark. Start dotting in that shading here and everywhere. Yeah, because these shapes are starting to get a bit lost in the noise, so we're going to really draw them out with this extra shadow. Oops, that's not great. That's not great. That shadow needs to be higher than that, because it's meant to be kind of like around the Yeah, that's starting to look less terrible. We have like no, I thought we had like two nearly identical shades. We don't. That's fine. There we go. That's starting to look a bit more like it. Yes, I'm definitely going for kind of like a. I am leaning towards that really great idea. Some kind of having it kind of like be destroyed. That kind of like really kind of gives us a bit more texture, a bit more kind of interesting stuff we can do with the layout, rather not having people go, "Why is the Spencer Mansion a skate park now?" Not the people who play this game, if it ever happens, should really be thinking about it that much. It's not that kind of game. It's hardly what I call cerebral. That doesn't look half bad. Okay, let's try and focus this highlight here a bit so it's a bit more kind of along the top of the... Okay, yep, looks pretty good. And then we're going to darken this very slightly so there's a bit more of a hard edge on the kind of bottom trim, just a bit like that. And we've got a stray kind of pixel there that kind of stands out. And this is a bit too light given there's meant to be a shadow right next to it, so let's sort that out. Okay, that will do for that. Okay, next up we want kind of about how we're doing for time. Okay, we're about 10 minutes left. We want this kind of wall texture doing here, so let's have a look at it. Does it have any kind of like pattern on it or anything like that? Can we ever see that? Doesn't look like it. It looks like it's basically just a kind of like a, would you call it magnolia? I think it's a bit darker. It's a bit more kind of like creamy yellow than is a magnolia. I think some of that might be lighting, but it's kind of hard to say. That said, if it was lighting, the floor would be yellow as well. Okay, let's open recent and let's open our trim texture and save this as entrance wall. And again, we're going to basically start off with a kind of like a very saturated kind of yellow, way more than we're going to need. Lighten it up, copy it down, and let's just see how that kind of sits in the scene. So see how it kind of looks when we put it next to the other textures. Wall. Oh, it's working now. It's actually adding it to the list automatically. That was weird. It wasn't doing that before. So that might be slightly too light, but I think it's about right. Yeah, the vertex paint's really putting in the work here, isn't it? It really kind of like helps break up the repetitiveness of the textures. So we just need to unwrap this nice and quick. And then switch this over to this one so we can refresh it. And let's just add a bit of noise. Let's just darken this a bit. Oh yeah, also this is tiling, so let's go into tile mode. Oh, such a great feature that is. I don't use it often enough, but damn, it's such a great feature. Right, that's way too contrasty. I mean, we are looking for like a slightly destroyed version of Spencer Mansion, but that might be a bit too contrasty. But we're going to run the blur tool over it, and it should soften it up a bit. At which point I might just adjust the palette just to reduce the contrast slightly. Let's give it another blur pass. Oh, I actually kind of like that. It's got a bit of kind of like a, it's got a bit of kind of like a, yeah, this kind of like texture to it. It's got like a bit of a grain to it. Kind of looks like some kind of wallpaper does, you know, when you get a bit close to it and it kind of has that kind of grain to it. That's completely unintentional, but I actually kind of like that. Okay, that's that sorted. Next up, let's fix this kind of patch here that's a bit too light. Or actually, the whole thing can actually do with like, it's not really using the upper two shades, so let's just lighten it up. And let's have a look here. We've got this kind of archy bit here, which we want to get rid of. And then we've got kind of a line here. Let's get rid of that. Let's just paint over it. And now we've got some kind of edge along the bottom. Let's get rid of that. Let's see how that looks in context. Yeah, that's too noisy. Let's blur over that. Hey, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. It's got a little bit of extra texture that kind of help it sort of part. One of the things is you'd be able to get way closer to the walls in this than you ever could with the fixed camera angles. So like having a bit of extra texture just to kind of make it look less repetitive is a good thing. So we've still got 8 minutes left. So I might start work on some of these columns. Now, if I just draw a new image, bigger than that, I think, 1080. I need to start thinking about scale, because like whereas like these, I can just tile them. When it comes to things like columns, I have to think about how big they're going to be. So let's have a look at a screenshot of Resident Evil again. Oh, I've lost it. Let's just try and gauge how big these are compared to the characters. Yeah, so they're actually like, they're probably about the same size as their collision boxes. So that's probably like, you know, 0.7 by 0.7 meters roughly. Bear in mind, like, yeah, these characters are probably like 1.5 to 1.7 meters tall. But if we're going to have fewer of them, we're going to want them to be slightly larger. So I might actually make them the full meter. So I'm going to stop prefixing these as I'm going to put them in folders. Actually, I'm going to start doing that now. Entrance hall, column, base. No, I'll just make it column. I was a bit torn them for a second as to whether I make separate textures for all the various pieces of the column or whether I make just the one. And given it's only going to tile in one axis, I think I'm just going to make the one. So let's have a look at the color on this and see if we can figure out what kind of color it is. It looks again like it's a very kind of flat grayish neutral, and the only reason it looks more kind of like bluish here is I think these lights have got a very slight blue tint on them. If you look at the section near the ground, it looks again, it looks very kind of neutral and flat. I wonder why they went for blue lighting. I guess it might just look good against the kind of the yellow background. Okay, so we're going to need this to be a bit taller because it's going to have a base, kind of like a middle, and sort of like a top. And I think I might make the kind of very top its own thing. So let's go for, base, middle, and we're going to probably get tile section in the middle of it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're thankfully not limited in any way by like power of 2 requirements. I'm just doing out of habit more than anything else. So 5 times 32 is going to be 64 plus 32, 96. Okay, I was like, what's it done there? It's because of the tiling. Yeah, this is the area that's actually been tiled, so we can turn off the white tiling. It's only be tile one axis. Did I get that right? No, I didn't get that right, did I? Hang on. It's 128 plus 32. It's going to be 130, 160. There we go. And let's go back to our floor tile. And let's copy its palette because it looks like they're roughly the same color. And again, we're going to start out with a kind of like a rough kind of penciling of where all the details are. So let's have a look. Do we have a better view than that? Because we can kind of see how it's structured. It's kind of like it's got this kind of like base molding, and it's got like a flat section with kind of like a square recess, and then we've got kind of like a bit of trim sticking out around the top, and then we have a cylindrical section which looks like it might have kind of like a step on it. This bit looks mostly flat. It doesn't have any of the doesn't have any of these kind of like, lines on it. If I knew any history at all, I'd know what I'm talking about. And then you have this top section here, which looks actually slightly different between these columns and these columns. What's actually kind of funny looking at it is I'm pretty sure this base is like a scaled down version of this, because they look very similar except one of them looks a bit squashed. Okay. All right. Got a base here, and it will also be quite easy to resize these later on if I find out that I've sized them incorrectly or something. And it looks like there's more gap to the sides than top and bottom, so let's go with that. Oh, I could also be using the symmetry tool, couldn't I? Yes, I could. This is largely going to be a symmetrical object. And then we're going to have, and this section here is the bit that's going to be wrapped onto the cylinder, so we're going to have a bit like that. And then it's going to go all the way up here. And this bit's going to end up with a bit of texture distortion, but I think that's fine. I might actually make that shorter. Let's see how it looks kind of in engine. Well, not in engine, but you know what I mean. Let's extrude, actually subdivide this. And extrude this up. And let's assign our column texture to all the sides of it. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this is a return of a classic. I'm not sure whether it's a Blender or an Sprite bug. The devs didn't quite, between the two platforms, didn't quite seem to agree. Blender will import indexed, palletized TGA files without an alpha channel, because technically the spec doesn't say that the alpha channel is actually an alpha channel. Is that snap? Yes, it's snapping correctly good. Now I suspect this may be upside down. Yes, it's upside down. There we go. No, it's not. And I'm just going to replicate this onto the other sides. Oh, I might just rotate the object itself. Yeah, that's way too big. That's way too big. I mean, I might actually experiment with it, move it out a bit and see how it kind of looks when there's a lot, because you wouldn't have a space this small in a skateboarding game. It just wouldn't work. Anyway, that's an hour. I'm out of time. I unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, it's very fortunate I have places to be today. Yeah, that's it for today. I might stream tomorrow. It's unlikely though. So I might be back Monday. Have a great Saturday.